The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You know, they went with the really smart move and were able to get the program started at a school that I think the program is going to be wildly successful at Little Rock for a few reasons. I think the school is going to value it. I think the community is going to embrace it. I think they made a fantastic hire with Neil Erisman.
If you're the athletics director at a Division I institution and you're looking to hire a head coach to start your team from scratch, what are some of the credentials you're looking for? If you're starting a basketball team, are you going to look at someone like legendary coach Mike Krzyzewski of Duke or Gino Auriemma of UConn? Would you go with a legendary athlete like a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James? In football, are you going to look for the Joe Montana type? Are you going to look for someone who's built a career on coaching despite not having lavish athletic credentials, like New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick? Are you going to look for a person to groom the culture and create a community and family? Or are you looking for someone who wants to win at any cost? The one thing about college sports is all of those type of coaches get jobs at one point or another. In wrestling, Division I head coaching jobs are rare. As we enter the 2019-2020 college wrestling season, there are 78 Division I wrestling teams. By comparison, Division I basketball, there are 347. Wrestling teams are often classified as non-revenue sports, meaning the school isn't taking in a lot of money on gate receipts, if at all. At the Division I level, basketball and football are revenue sports, where schools sometimes rely on the attendance and success of those programs to help finance the other sports in the department. Whether or not those teams bring in positive cash flow doesn't change their distinction. So the pressure to win and put butts in the seats isn't as imperative on a wrestling coach. Although in the competitive climate of athletics, with rising costs, coaches are now being charged to make their programs more valuable in the eyes of the athletic department. If you're a team with a low graduation rate, poor grades, discipline problems, and a culture of trouble, you're going to be at risk, especially if you're a non-revenue sport. With all that being considered, wrestling fans typically get stars in their eyes about the latest up-and-coming coach, usually someone who's got tremendous credentials on the mat. It's almost a letdown for some fans when they hire a coach who isn't a national champion. I don't have anything statistical to justify this claim, but the impression I get is wrestling believes that more than other sports, you have to have achieved at the highest level to be a successful coach. If it's not a name hire, then the administration has failed the fans and alumni. So what type of hire was Little Rock AD Chase Conk going to pick up? Welcome to Rocked Up, the story of the foundation and formation of the first Division I college wrestling program in Arkansas, starting in November 2019 at the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. This is the 6th edition of the story. The first 5 set the table, because to tell the story of the Little Rock Trojans wrestling program, you had to start from the ground up, with the foundation of Arkansas high school wrestling, which didn't even exist 11 years ago. Last episode, we talked with Chase Conk shortly after the announcement that came in March of 2018 that Little Rock would add a Division I wrestling program to its sports offerings. On June 20, 2018, Little Rock introduced the man who would lead their new program and set the tone for what to expect. So who is Neil Erisman? Actually, before we tell Neil's story, we have to kind of address the elephant in the room. A couple episodes ago, we introduced you to 4-time national champion Pat Smith. Yes, Pat Smith, a 4-time national collegiate champion, resides in Little Rock. Little Rock is starting a program. Let's just address that right off the bat. Did Pat Smith consider applying for this job?
Yes. I mean, I thought about it, and it was something I definitely thought about, and something some few people around here talked to me about. I felt like that, what I'm doing, where I'm at, the place I'm in, with my children. My kids are young. I have a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I'm able to spend a lot of time with them. I'm able to. My club is thriving. Things are going good, and I enjoy what I'm doing. I enjoy working with kids. And, I enjoyed working at the college level, and I enjoyed working with guys who try to make the Olympic team and that type of thing. But I get more joy out of working with these little kids and trying to build confidence in them. Yeah, it was a thought, but I just decided that I'm happy, my wife's happy, my kids are happy, we're in a good place. And, not to say I'm not going to have some involvement with UALR. I am, and I don't know what level that might be, but I will tell you one thing: UALR is my college team, and I'm going to be the biggest fan they've got.
Now, Pat Smith also explained that he wasn't exactly about to remove the Pistol Pete, the Oklahoma State mascot, from his front yard in Little Rock. However, Pat would be involved in the hiring process, as we hear from Little Rock Athletic Director Chase Conk explain.
Yeah, we leaned on Pat, during our hiring process, and obviously included him as we brought our candidates into Little Rock. But you look, and especially from the outside looking in, and I have to remind myself of this, but this is what led to this decision to start this program. You've got someone in Greg Hatcher who's willing to invest at a very high level to make sure that your program's successful. And you've got a solid university in a capital city. You've got a state where high school wrestling is growing and has grown leaps and bounds from being non-existent 10 years ago. And then you've got someone like Pat Smith in your own backyard. And you said it's the perfect storm. We have so many tools and assets at our fingertips. And these guys, they want us to be successful.
On a previous episode, Chase Conk had explained to Greg Hatcher that they had lost their basketball coach. Well, since he's been the AD, Chase Conk had a few more coaches to replace than just basketball and higher wrestling. All of this played into his philosophy on hiring.
We hired 4 new head coaches in our department in 2018. It was a busy year. And to be honest, my own personal philosophy, and if you look back at our hiring practices, most of the coaches I've hired have had head coaching experience before at the college level. Not necessarily Division I experience, but they've been a CEO of their program. They know what it takes to run a program top down. They understand the balance of academics and athletics. So probably my comfort level most of the time is having somebody in that position coaching our sport that has been a head coach before.
As mentioned earlier, Division I head wrestling coaching jobs are rare. So when Little Rock made its announcement and posted its job, Chase Conk's inbox was flooded. The number of applicants for this position was in the 50s. Some of them Division I head coaches already. So how does Neil Erisman come out of this as the top dog?
Neil was unique, but I felt like he had a lot of the qualities. Anytime you hire a coach, and it doesn't matter if you hire one of the most successful sitting Division I coaches to take over your program, they also have to be a fit. And just because you can do it somewhere doesn't mean that it would translate exactly to our place. And so explaining the parameters in which they would have to work in, again, letting me kind of dig in a little bit and hear more about their vision and what they think they need to be successful. That was really key in this process because as we were working through our list of applicants and our candidates, one of the best questions I could get the most valuable feedback is, what is it going to take for you to be successful here? And you can really learn a lot about a coach and how prepared they are to be a CEO based on the answers to those questions. And how specific do they get? Do they understand all the facets that entail a Division I college program? And Neil did that best, and we haven't been disappointed. He understands all the key aspects, and he's done a phenomenal job to this point.
As you know by now, Little Rock hired Neil Erisman, at the time an assistant coach at the University of North Carolina. A Kansas native, he was a 3-time NCAA Division I championship qualifier at Oklahoma State, twice seeded in the top 12, and just missing out on All-American honors his senior year. The day he's hired, June 20th, Neil had to recharge his phone twice with the outpouring of support he got with the position.
So I've gotten more phone calls and texts and emails just from family, people that I know, people I don't know. Just everybody reaching out and saying how happy they are and excited for me and my family and for this program. It's been incredible.
The scarcity of Division I jobs is not lost on Neil Erisman. Prior to Little Rock, he was an assistant coach for Olympic bronze medalist Coleman Scott at the University of North Carolina, building a pretty good program in Chapel Hill. From a resume perspective, 70% of Division I head coaches were Division I All-Americans in college. With a large crop of Division I assistants who've won national championships likely applying, what possesses Neil Erisman to throw his hat in the ring?
Well, looking at it, I remember, I think they announced it at Nationals, and the day, Nationals was over. Just try to find a bunch of information out about it. I think first and foremost, it's location. I grew up in Kansas, wrestled at Oklahoma State. I have been all through Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas. I've been to Arkansas a lot. And so I think the location was the first thing. And then just finding out that Greg Hatcher was behind it. Everything he touches turns to gold. he does it the right way, the respectable way. From there, it was really just instantaneous. I was excited from day one.
Erisman was confident. He'd spent time training under John Smith. Yes, that John Smith, the one we've mentioned that's won a lot of those Olympic and world titles and was the head coach at Oklahoma State. Yeah, the brother of Pat Smith, who's in town here in Little Rock.
I reached out to a lot of people and really put a bug in a lot of people's ear about my experience because, most people only know what you don't know. So throughout the process, I was just trying to get it out that, my experience has been unbelievably unique from day one. Being at Oklahoma State, the coaching tree is just growing drastically under Coach Smith. He prepares us in a way that you can't even really describe.
What Erisman means by coaching tree is the number of wrestlers who are now Division I head coaches who wrestled under John Smith at Oklahoma State. They're American head coach Teague Moore, Army West Point head coach Kevin Ward, the former coach at Ouachita Baptist, who you've heard on a previous episode of this show, Duke's Glenn Lanham, NC State's Pat Popolizio, North Carolina's Coleman Scott, and Wyoming's Mark Branch. The only coaching tree that's bigger at the Division I level is legendary Iowa coach Dan Gable. He has 11 former Iowa Hawkeyes as head coaches at the Division I level. One thing that Erisman does bring to the table is high school coaching experience. That's not something often seen amongst Division I head wrestling coaches because most of them go from being an elite athlete to maybe a volunteer assistant to a paid assistant, then to a head coaching job. How do you sell a college athletic director who's made 3 previous coaching hires in the year that your high school wrestling coaching experience is preparing you for a Division I gig?
Throughout the process, I just tried to really convey humbly that I was more than prepared for this. My time at Oklahoma State and then going to Stillwater High School for a little bit, you learn so much being a high school coach. I think every college coach should have to spend time at a high school. Accolades are one thing and being a national champion, but being the person that has to get up and mop mats and do laundry, go down to the bus stop and drink coffee with the people at the bus stop so you get the best bus and you don't break down. You learn how to build relationships. You learn the value of relationships and treating people the right way and earning everything and really learning how to ask for things and manage a lot of things, wear a lot of hats at once.
At the University of North Carolina, where Coleman Scott, the 2012 Olympic bronze medalist in men's freestyle at 60 kilos, was in his first year as a head coach. He was trying to go one more Olympic cycle and make the 2016 Olympic team in Rio de Janeiro. So right away in his time at Carolina, Erisman was put into situations most young assistants don't get to see.
We were in a very unique position. Coleman was still training. And for several months, it was just me and Coleman. And so we got to do a lot of things together for the first time. He was a first-time head coach. And so I, really got to go through the process of what it's like at every level and all the aspects that are behind that.
Erisman's trajectory hasn't gone unnoticed. You mentioned Kevin Ward previously. Well, he was the voice you heard at the opening of the show. And Kevin Ward was the first college wrestling coach in the state of Arkansas at Ouachita Baptist. An Oklahoma State alum, he's now the head coach at the U.S. Military Academy, a.k.a. Army West Point, up in West Point, New York.
Well, I've known Neil a long time, so I think I was a graduate assistant at Oklahoma State when he came in as a freshman. So I've known him, since on his recruiting visit. And so I know what type of person he is, for one. And I've seen his career progress, and we've kept in touch. I mean, we're buddies, just to be honest with you. So I don't have an unbiased opinion of him. But, I've seen him move from coaching Stillwater High School to make the leap to moving, him and his family halfway across the country to Chapel Hill. And then, having the guts, just to say it, the balls to pick up and move and then go start a program in Little Rock. Having somebody that has the guts to do it and the belief in themselves to get started is a lot of the battle. And his personality is going to be a really good fit. He's a personable guy. He's a high character guy, so he's going to do things the right way. He's not going to take shortcuts and burn bridges. So he's going to be able to recruit, which I think he's proven already. And then we come from a similar wrestling system. So, being able to develop guys technically, I think is going to be, fairly, maybe the easiest part for him, is developing people on the mat. So, no, I don't have any doubts that they're going to be successful. And
one thing that's interesting about Kevin Ward and Neil Erisman is they were both the same weight class at Oklahoma State, and neither was an All-American, and both were significant first hires in the state of Arkansas. But is that where the similarities end?
I think, Neil and I had similar careers. We weren't that kind of, top 0.5% of wrestlers that stand on the podium at the NCAA tournament, but we had, I think we both had good experiences. We had great coaching, and we learned a lot, and now we're able to, both of us, able to use that knowledge to help others, which, I'll speak for him on this. It's really what drives us and what we want to do.
Ward explains the two's relationship. Yeah, they're buddies. So how much did Neil actually lean on Kevin Ward when it came to this job?
Oh, man, you know what? We actually, I probably had this conversation with Neil a dozen times. But, no, he doesn't need my help. But you get one chance to do it the right way, and in a lot of ways, starting a program can be easier than taking over a program. That's something I've learned. And now in some ways it's much more difficult. But it's about getting the right people in place. And I can tell you, when you get a chance to be associated with a winner like Greg Hatcher, you take the opportunity and you do it. And then you make the most of your chances. Like Greg said, your first, best, or different. If you can be all three, then you're really dangerous. So he's got some incredible mentors there and a lot of really good people around him. I would say use those people. Don't ever let anybody else tell you what's possible or what's not. And if you think you can do it, there's no reason not to do everything in your power to make those dreams become reality.
Now we're going to tie Pat Smith and Neil Erisman together. You'd already heard that Pat considered applying for the job. How serious was Little Rock in approaching him?
Yeah, early on, you probably in a naive way thought that could be a great option for us, but I knew pretty quick that we were going to go outside and wanted Pat to be involved at whatever level he wanted to be involved in, and I think we're seeing that now. We're seeing the relationship that he and Neil have, and but he's just a great asset, and I know he wants us to do well, and Greg has been very big in Pat's career, and getting him here to Little Rock to help build this sport in our state. So it's really the best of both worlds. We've got Pat here. We have a great head coach in Neil Erisman. So there's a lot of brain power, a lot of industry connections. That's good pressure that we feel, and certainly we're excited about it.
Last episode, we alluded to the perceived relationship between Oklahoma State and Little Rock's new program. Is it a thing?
Yeah, no, it's we're fortunate, right? I mean, you when we hired a coach, when we knew we were going to hire a coach, you wanted to hire somebody that had good pedigree, and certainly Neil brings that with all of his connections. We're going to make a trip to Stillwater. I want to see firsthand how they do things at one of their home duels, and just having those connections. Whether it be recruiting, whether it be mentorship, it's good to have friends in the business, and so that was important to us. Regionally, it means a lot. I mean, we're just 5 hours or so away from Stillwater, and so all those things are positives, and they mean a lot to our program. I think it's helped accelerate where we are right now, and Neil has been a great person to capitalize on all those relationships, and whether it's Coach Smith in Stillwater or having Pat right here in our own backyard, all those are great positives.
Earlier in the series, you met Mike Moyer, the executive director of the National Wrestling Coaches Association. Among one of the things his association brings to the table is when schools start new wrestling programs, it's helping them place head wrestling coaches. What does Moyer think of Little Rock's hire of Neil Erisman?
Again, a great coach, the absolute perfect coach to get this brand new program off the ground. He got really strong CEO skills, obviously very proficient from a technical, tactical standpoint, but he really is strong with the external skills, because that program needs somebody who can get the entire community and all around the Little Rock area excited about wrestling. And keep in mind that wrestling's still so new to the state that he's got to get people that maybe have never seen a wrestling match to come and watch some of the best wrestling in the country. He's got the right demeanor. He's got the right skill set to be wildly successful with that program.
As this series is outlined, high school wrestling in Arkansas is coming from absolute zero, the bottom. There was nothing to grow from. 11 years in and a Division I program ready to start. How soon does Neil Erisman think he can have the first Division I wrestling All-American from the state of Arkansas on his team? How high of a priority is that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's at the back of my mind. I think that's right up front. Wrestling has grown tremendously there. They just had a kid. I believe he went to North Dakota State. I could be wrong, but there's a lot of great talent. Pat Smith has a great club. There's several other high school coaches I know in the Arkansas area that have some great kids and great kids club. With access to information that they have to learn, I think that this is going to be an opportunity to not only just be Little Rock's team, but be Arkansas's team.
At the beginning of the episode, we asked what type of coach would you hire? What type of background? What type of pedigree? We've established the type of pedigree Neil Erisman has as a coach, coming from Oklahoma State and then coaching one of the top high school programs in that state, then to joining Coleman Scott on the staff at the University of North Carolina. Athletically, the pedigree includes not placing at the NCAA Wrestling Championships. That fact drives coaches like Kevin Ward and drives coaches like Neil Erisman to be even better at their craft.
Well, I'll say when I was done competing, I was maybe a little bitter at the sport a little bit. I was unbelievably disappointed. I spent my whole life, and I fell short in the round of 12. And
to clarify, the round of 12 is the round in the consolations at the NCAA Wrestling Tournament, where if you win, you're an All-American. You're placing no worse than 8th place. If you lose, you're done. No podium, no accolades, no All-American honors. In recent years, it's gained the nickname as the Blood Round, the most nerve-wracking, heart-wrenching, stomach-turning round in wrestling.
I realized that, God only gives you, He'll give you everything you can handle, and He'll give it to you for a reason. And I shortly, realized that, He gave me a gift to be able to convey things to others and reach them on their level and to help instill confidence in them. It drives me to never have to have a kid lose in the round of 12. It drives me to help a kid never have to go 0-2 at nationals. Because I know that feeling. I think one of the worst feelings I've had as a coach was this year when Kennedy Monday just by a hair lost in the round of 12. That probably cut me worse than I've ever had as a coach. And I hate that feeling for him. And, I think that's what drives me. It drives me to serve and help these kids that in a time where, there's a lot of lost kids that you get as a wrestling coach. Sometimes wrestling draws misfits and kids that, that don't have the best resources. And so just that whole aspect of not accomplishing my goal and being able to serve these high school kids and create relationships, lifelong relationships to help them achieve their goals so they don't ever have to feel that. I think that's it. I think that's what drives me. I think that's what has drove me since day one of being a wrestling coach.
On the next episode of Rocked Up, we'll go back and talk with Chase Conk and meet Molly Kastner, academic support with the athletics department at Little Rock, and go into some of the details that are often overlooked when it comes to college athletics. We have a program. We have a coach. We're still waiting on assistants. We're still waiting on a facility. All that and more coming up in the second half of this season of Rocked Up. Rocked Up is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network and can be found on the web at getrockedup.com or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found. For more wrestling-specific podcasts, check out matttalkonline.com. If you like the show and want to support it, leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/matttalkonline.